Hello, everyone. Sorry. I thought that for a second my things were broken. Let me double check. I have to make sure that OBS can actually hear me. And it can. It can indeed. Alrighty. Sorry about that. Uh, and sorry, stream started just a little bit late. I mean, technically didn't start late, but I definitely took my time getting off of my BRB screen. And that's because everyone decided to message me in DMs right before my stream. Like literally as it was starting. And yeah. Anywho, I hope everyone is feeling nice and cozy. Yeah, moss time. Uh, the grim fairy tale we're on right now is Faithful John. And Faithful John better not be too weird and religious, or I'm gonna have to skip it. Because I just don't want to, have certain topics be part of my general streaming goodies, I guess you would say. But yeah, I don't know what Faithful John's about, but we'll definitely figure it out. We're yeah, like I said, we're still reading through the Grimm's fairy tales. And the Grimm's fairy tales are just a bunch of very small stories, very short stories. So, hey, thank you, Johnny. But yeah, so don't worry about if you don't make it to a stream or two of this, because every stream is gonna have a few different small stories. Um, I'm kind of debating lately if people even really like my reading streams, but we'll figure that out over time. We'll figure it out. Ultimately, if I decide that the reading streams aren't going well, like Days like, don't stop them. We need them in our lives, please. uh, we'll see. We'll see. I worry about people getting lost plot wise if they miss one or two. Anyway, I have my lovely, lovely tea. It's lovely. You know, one of my favorite words in the world. It's still very hot though. I made it like 20 minutes ago. How is it still boiling hot? This tea is blackberry and raspberry, I want to say. I also have some loose leaf stuff, but I need to get a new loose leaf diffuser, and I need to get bigger teacups. Speaking of which, check out my throne wish list. Just anyway, the time for reading is nigh. And we all know that these, I know, shameless plug. I am shameless. Ah, but, anyway, we all know that these streams are all very chill and, they can take as much time as they want to get up and off the ground. And you guys can just suffer through me blabbering for a little bit. I want to make sure I'm nice and cozy. And comfy. But not too cozy and comfy. I might fall asleep. Whoopsies. Yeah, I also decided to have some microphone issues just before the stream, which is also very fun. It's so fun to struggle with my technology. Anyway, we're on page 40 of the Grimm's Fairy Tales collection, whatever. Into a nap time stream? Maybe. And yeah, Faithful John is where we're starting. And again, if it makes me too meh, I'll skip it. Cozy. Cozy, comfy. Anyway, there was once upon a time. Oh, thank you for the care package, Midani. Literally right as I was about to start reading. Uh-oh, fights here. 1 second. Sorry, everyone, just a moment. Fight got home and we're talking about him going to the DMV and how he's gonna be off work today. Maybe I should just play Hollow Knight today, huh? I don't know. Anyway, I mean, he's gonna go to the DMV soon anyway, so I won't have the house needs to be quiet rule for too long. uh, I literally started reading and then he walked in. Oh my god. Everything is pain. Don't take it away from me. I'm gonna be doing it, don't worry. It's fine. Oh my goodness. Fight is so judgy about my reading streams. Anyway, there was once upon a time an old king who was ill, and thought to himself, I am lying on what must be my deathbed. Then said he, tell faithful John, I'm good at this, I swear. Tell faithful John to come to me. Faithful John was his favorite servant, and was so called because he came beside the bed. No, I skipped a line. Yay! I'm so out of practice for my reading streams. Tell Faithful John to come to me. Faithful John was his favorite servant, and was so called because he had for his whole life long been so true to him. When therefore he came beside the bed, the king said to him, most faithful John, I feel my end approaching. I have no anxiety except about my son. He is still of tender age, and cannot always know how to guide himself. If thou dost not promise me to teach him everything that he ought to know, and to be his foster father, I cannot close my eyes in peace. Then answered faithful John, I will not forsake him, and I will serve him with fidelity, even if it should cost me my life. On this the old king said, now I die in comfort and peace. Then he added, after my death thou shalt show him the whole castle, all the chambers, halls, and vaults, and all the treasures which lie therein. But the last chamber in the long gallery, in which is the picture of my princess of the golden dwelling, shalt thou not show. If he sees that picture, he will fall violently in love with her, and will drop down in a swoon, and go through great danger for her sake. Therefore Thou must preserve him from that. And when faithful John had once more given his promise to the old king about this, the king said no more, but laid his head on his pillow and died. When the old king had been carried to his grave, faithful John told the young king that he had promised his father on his deathbed. Yeah, okay, yeah. Told the young king all that he had promised his father on his deathbed, and said, "This will I assuredly perform, and will be faithful to thee as I have been faithful to him, even if it should cost me my life." When the mourning was over, faithful John said to him, "It is now time that thou shouldst see thine inheritance. I will show thee thy father's palace." Then he took them about everywhere, up and down, and let him see all the riches and the magnificent apartments. Only there was one room which he did not open, that in which hung the dangerous picture. The picture was, however, so placed that when the door opened you looked straight on it, and it was so admirably painted that it seemed to breathe and live, and there was nothing more charming or more beautiful in the whole world. The young king, however, plainly remarked that faithful John always walked past this one door, and said, "Why dost thou never open this one for me?" "There is something within it," he replied, "which would terrify thee." But the king answered, "I have seen all the palace, and I will know what it is, and I will know what is in this room also." He went and tried to break open the door by force. Then faithful John held him back and said, "I promised thy father before his death that thou shouldst not see that which is in this chamber. It might bring the greatest misfortune on thee and on me." "Ah, no," replied the young king. "If I do not go in, it will be my certain destruction. I should have no rest day or night until I had seen it with my own eyes. I shall not leave the place now until thou hast unlocked the door." Then faithful John saw that there was no help for it now, and with a heavy heart and many sighs sought out the key from the great bunch. When he had opened the door, he went in first, and thought by standing before him he could hide the portrait so that the king should not see it in front of him. But what availed that? The king stood on tiptoe and saw it over his shoulder, and when he saw the portrait of the maiden, which was so magnificent and shone with gold and precious stones, he fell fainting to the ground. Faithful John took him up, carried him to his bed, and sorrowfully thought, "The misfortune has befallen the misfortune has befallen us, good Lord. What will be the end of it?" Then he strengthened him with wine until he came to himself again. Strange way to strengthen someone, but okay. The first words the king said were, "Ah, the beautiful portrait, whose is it?" "That is the princess of the golden dwelling," answered faithful John. Then the king continued, "My love for her is so great that if all the leaves on all the trees were tongues, they could not declare it. I will give my life to win her. Thou art my most faithful John. Thou must help me." What a fucking moron this guy is. If I was John, I would have just knocked him out. I would have just, like, taken a piece of furniture, just gave him a quick little bap on the head, and, that would have been that. Just a small little bap. Just like a little boop. And then he takes a nap, and then he finds out that he gets booped every time he opens the door. And problem solved. The faithful servant considered himself considered within himself for a long time how to set about the matter, for it was difficult even to obtain a sight of the king's daughter. At length he thought of a way, and said to the king, everything which she has about her is of gold: tables, chairs, dishes, glasses, bowls, and household furniture. Among thy treasures are 5 tons of gold. Let one of the goldsmiths of the kingdom work these up into all manner of vessels and utensils, into all kinds of birds, wild beasts, and strange animals, such as may please her, and we will go there with them and try our luck. I don't think it's gonna go well. Okay. The king ordered all the goldsmiths to be brought to him, and they had to work night and day until at last the most splendid things were prepared. When everything was stowed on board a ship, faithful John put on the dress of a merchant, and the king was forced to do the same in order to make himself quite unrecognizable. Then they sailed across the sea, and sailed on until they came to the town wherein dwelt the princess of the golden dwelling. I feel like she might be cursed. Is she like a Princess Midas? Is she just so tired of gold? I would be so tired of gold. I think I would lose my fucking mind. Just everything I have in my entire life is gold, and I don't like it. Basically. Like, wouldn't you get bored? I would get bored. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit, distracted. Anyway, faithful John bade the king stay behind on the ship and wait for him. Perhaps I shall bring the princess with me, said he. Therefore, see that everything is in order, have the golden vessel set out, and the whole ship decorated. What? Then he gathered together in his apron all kinds of golden things, went on shore, and walked straight to the royal palace. When he entered the courtyard of the palace, a beautiful girl was standing there by the well with 2 golden buckets in her hand, drawing water with them. Sounds not great. Um, and when she was just turning round to carry away the sparkling water, she saw the stranger, and asked who he was. So he answered, I am a merchant, and opened his apron, and let her look in. Then she cried, Oh, what beautiful gold things! And put her pails down, and looked at the golden wares, one after the other. Then said the girl, The princess must see these. She has such great pleasure in golden things that she will buy all you have. Oh boy. She took him by the hand and led him upstairs, for she was the waiting maid. When the king's daughter saw the wares, she was quite delighted, and said, They are so beautifully worked that I will buy them all of thee. But faithful John said, I am only the servant of a rich merchant. The things I have here are not to be compared with those my master has in his ship. They are the most beautiful and valuable things that have ever been made in gold. She wanted to have everything brought to her there, but he said, There are so many of them that it would take a great many days to do that, and so many rooms would be required to exhibit them, that your house is not big enough. What's their game? Then her curiosity and longing were still more excited, until at last she said, Conduct me to the ship. I will go there myself and behold the treasures of thine master. On this, faithful John was quite delighted, and led her to the ship. And when the king saw her, he perceived that her beauty was even greater than the picture had represented it to be, and thought no other than his heart would hmm? and thought no other than that his heart would burst in twain. Oh no. Then she got into the ship, and the king led her within. Faithful John, however, remained behind with the pilot, and ordered the ship to be pushed off, saying, "Set all sail till it fly like a bird in air." Oh, he's just kidnapping a princess. I don't think that's gonna go well. Within, however, the king showed her the golden vessels, every one of them, also the wild beasts and strange animals. Many hours went by whilst she was seeing everything, and in her delight she did not observe that the ship was sailing away. Kidnappings are why princesses exist. I mean, yeah, remember Bad End Theater? The maiden wanted to get kidnapped. So cozy. Sorry. Ba, 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 ba. After she had looked at the last, she thanked the merchant and wanted to go home. But when she came to the side of the ship, she saw that it was on the deep sea, far from land. And hurrying onwards with all sail set. Ah! Cried, ah! I thought she was going, ah! Instead of, ah! She's screaming, is what I'm saying. Ah! She cried in her alarm. I am betrayed. I am carried away and have fallen into the power of a merchant. I would die rather. Oh God. The king, however, seized her hand and said, I am not a merchant, I am a king, and of no meaner origin than thou art. And if I have carried thee away with subtlety, that has come to pass because of my exceeding great love for thee. The first time that I looked on thy portrait, I fell fainting to the ground. When the princess of the golden dwelling heard that, she was comforted, and her heart was inclined unto him, so that she willingly consented to be his wife. You know what? I guess it worked out. We still have a couple of pages, though, so I feel like something bad is going to happen. It so happened, however, while they were sailing onwards over the deep sea, that faithful John, who was sitting on the fore part of the vessel making music, saw three ravens in the air, which came flying towards them. On this he stopped playing and listened to what they were saying to each other, for that he well understood. One cried, There he is, carrying home the princess of the golden dwelling. Yes, replied the second, but he has not got her yet, said the third. But he has got her. She is sitting beside him in the ship. Then the first began again and cried, What good will that do him? When they reach land, a chestnut horse will will leap forward to meet him, and the prince will want to mount it. But if he does that, it will run away with him, and rise up into the air with him, and he will never see his maiden more. What? What? Wait a second. This is one hell of a twist. Um, spake the second. But is there no escape? Oh, yes, if anyone else gets on it swiftly and takes out the pistol, which must be in its holster, and shoots the horse dead with it, the young king is saved. But who knows that? And whosoever does know it, and tells it to him, will be turned to stone from the toe to the knee. Weird. Then said the second, I know more than that. Even if the horse be killed, the young king will still not keep his bride. When they go into the castle together, a wrought bridal garment will be lying there in a dish, and looking as if it were woven of gold and silver. It is, however, nothing but sulphur and pitch. And if he put it on, it will burn him to the very bone and marrow, said the third. Is there no escape at all? Oh my.
Oh my fuck. Did you put that in there?
No. If I got scared by something.
Wanna see?
Very loud. Anyway, sorry about that. I got jump scared by a thing that Chase put in his boot. It was very funny. It was a chocolate egg, apparently. Is there no escape at all? Oh, yes, replied the second. If anyone with gloves on seizes the garment and throws it into the fire and burns it, the young king will be saved. But what avails that? Whosoever knows it and tells it to him, half his body will become stone from the knee to the heart. Yikes. Then said the third, I know still more. Even if the bridal garment be burnt, the young king will still not have his bride. After the wedding, when the dancing begins and the young queen is dancing, she will suddenly turn pale and fall down as if dead. And if someone does not lift her up and draw 3 drops of blood from her right breast and spit them out again, she will die. This is some fucking wild shit. Okay. But if anyone who knows that were to declare it, he would become stone from the crown of his head to the sole of his foot. When the ravens had spoken of this together, they flew onwards, and faithful John had well understood everything. But from that time forth he became quiet and sad, for if he concealed what he had heard from his master, the latter would be unfortunate, and if he discovered it to him, he himself must sacrifice his life. At length, however, he said to himself, I will save my master, even if it brings destruction on myself. Couldn't he just do the things? And be like, well, I couldn't tell you, 'cause I turned to stone. I feel like that's the workaround. Okay, anyway. When, therefore, they came to shore, all happened as had been foretold by the ravens, and a magnificent chestnut horse sprang forward. Good, said the king, he shall carry me to my palace, and was about to mount it when faithful John got before him, jumped quickly on, drew the pistol out of the holster, and shot the horse. When the other attendants of the king, who after all were not very fond of faithful John, cried, How shameful to kill the beautiful animal! That was to have carried the king to his palace. But the king said, Hold your peace and leave him alone. He is my most faithful John. Or who knows what may be the good of that? Faithful John saving his boy. Faithful John saving his master. They went into the palace, and in the hall there stood a dish, and therein lay the bridal garment, looking no otherwise than as if it were made of gold and silver. The young king went towards it and was about to take hold of it, but Faithful John pushed him away, seized it with gloves on, carried it quickly to the fire and burnt it. The other attendants began to murmur, and said, "Behold, now he is even burning the king's bridal garment." But the young king said, "Who knows what good he may have done? Leave him alone. He is my most faithful John." Ah, I mean, the blood thing's gonna really get to him, huh? Yeah, he is. And now the wedding was solemnized. The dance began, and the bride also took part in it. Then Faithful John was watchful and looked into her face, and suddenly she turned pale, and fell to the ground as if she were dead. On this he ran hastily to her, lifted her up, and bore her into a chamber. Then he laid her down, and knelt and sucked out the 3 drops of blood from her right breast, and spat them out. Immediately she breathed again, and recovered herself. But the young king had seen this, and being ignorant why Faithful John had done it, was angry and cried, "Throw him into a dungeon." "Ah, but he's your boy." The next morning Faithful John was condemned and led to the gallows, and when he stood on high and was about to be executed, he said, "Every one who has to die is permitted before his end to make one last speech. May I too claim the right?" "Yes," answered the king. "It shall be granted unto thee." Then said Faithful John, "I am unjustly condemned, and have always been true to thee." And he related how he had hearkened to the conversation of the ravens when on the sea, and how he had been obliged to do all these things in order to save his master. Then cried the king, "O my most faithful John, pardon, pardon, bring him down." But as Faithful John spoke the last word, he had fallen down lifeless and become a stone. Thereupon the king and the queen suffered great anguish. And the king said, "Ah, how ill I have requited great fidelity," and ordered the stone figure to be taken up and placed in his bedroom beside his bed. That's a weird thing to do. I mean, that is still technically a corpse, and they have to do the naughty in that bed. Hopefully, it's one of his spare bedrooms, I guess. Just okay. Well, I guess he can watch you and give you approving nods or something. I don't know. Took a nice little sip of tea. And as often as he looked on it, he wept and said, "Ah, if I could bring thee to life again, my most faithful John." Some time passed, and the queen bore twins, 2 sons who grew fast and were her delight. Once, when the queen was at church and the 2 children were sitting playing beside her, beside their father. No, stop it, Tay. That is too much. Absolutely not. Don't, Tay. No, Tay, stop it. I'm gonna need you to fill the chat with something not that, please. Once, when the queen was at church and the 2 children were sitting playing beside their father, the latter, full of grief, again looked at the stone figure. uh, Looked at the stone figure, sighed, and said, "Ah, if I could but bring thee to life again, my most faithful John." Um, There we go. Almost there. There. Well, almost. Almost. Okay, there we go. Uno más. Uno más. There we go. All clean. Anyway, you're going in the naughty chair, Tay. Yes, good. Apologize. Anywho, if I could but bring thee to life again, my most faithful John. Then the stone began to speak and said, Thou canst bring me to life again if thou wilt use for that purpose what is dearest to thee. What? Then, cried the king. Okay, thank you for the lurk. Then cried the king, I will give everything I have in the world for thee. The stone continued, If thou wilt cut off the heads of thy 2 children with thine own hand, and sprinkle me with their blood, I shall be restored to life. That is a turn. I don't think the real John would actually make that request. What? What? I'm gonna clip that. Just, okay, the statue's talking and telling me to kill my children. I think I might need a different statue. The king was terrified when he heard that he himself must kill his dearest children, but he thought of faithful John's great fidelity, and how he had died for him, drew his sword, and with his own hand cut off his children's heads. And when he had smeared the stone with their blood, life returned to it, and faithful John stood once more safe and healthy before him. He said to the king, Thy truth shall not go unrewarded, and took the heads of the children, put them on again, and rubbed the wounds with their blood, on which they became whole again immediately and jumped about, and went on playing as if nothing had happened. Uh, 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 I don't know how I feel about this. I knew these stories were crazy, but goddamn, holy fuck. Just don't worry, they're gonna be fine. They just gotta walk it off, I guess. I'm sorry I spoke a little bit too loudly there, but what the fuck did I just read? Anyway, then the king was full of joy, and when he saw the queen coming, he hid faithful John and the 2 children in a great cupboard. When she entered, he said to her, Hast thou been praying in the church? Yes, answered she, but I have constantly been thinking of faithful John and what misfortune has befallen him through us. Then said he, Dear wife, we can give him his life again, but it will cost us our 2 little sons, whom we must sacrifice. The queen turned pale, and her heart was full of terror, but she said, We owe it to him for his great fidelity. Then the king was rejoiced that she thought as he had thought, and went and opened the cupboard, and brought forth faithful John and the children, and said, Goodness be praised, he is delivered, and we have our little sons again also, and told her how everything had occurred. They then dwelt together in much happiness until their death. Okay, 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 yep. Needed some tea to wash that weirdness down. How come they never made a Disney movie about that one? Fucking imagine. God damn. Anyway, the next short story is The Good Bargain. I have no idea what it's about. I've never heard of it before, but you know what? We are all experiencing all of this brand new, fresh together. There was once a peasant who had driven his cow to the fair and sold her for 7 thalers. 7 thalers? I don't know what that is. Like $7? Seems kind of cheap for a cow. On the way home, he had to pass a pond, and already from afar he heard the frogs crying, "Ache, ache, ache, ache." Well, he said to himself, they are talking without rhyme or reason. It is 7 that I have received, not 8. Oh, okay. When he got to the water, he cried to them, "Stupid animals that you are! Don't you know better than that? It is 7 thalers, and not 8." The frogs, however, stood to their ache, 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 ache. Come then, if you won't believe it, I can count it out for you. What is this man's life that he's stopping and getting in an argument with frogs because they're making a sound that vaguely sounds like 8? Is 1 thaler really that important to him? Really? God, imagine how boring your life must be to just argue with frogs. Just like, no, stupid. No, dummy. No, idiot frogs. Sorry. And he took his money out of his pocket and counted out the 7 thalers, always reckoning 4 and 20 groschen to a thaler. The frogs, however, paid no attention to his reckoning, but still cried, "Ache, ache, ache, ache." "What?" cried the peasant, quite angry. "Since you are determined to know better than I, count it yourselves," and threw all the money into the water to them. He threw all of his money in at the frogs because he didn't like what they were saying about his money. He stood still and wanted to wait until they were done and had brought him his own again. But the frogs maintained their opinion and cried continually, "Ache, ache, ache, ache," and besides that, did not throw the money out again. He still waited a long while until evening came on, and he was forced to go home. Then he abused the frogs and cried, "You water splashers, you thickheads, you goggle eyes. You have great mouths and can screech till you hurt one's ears, but you cannot count 7 thalers. Do you think I'm going to stand here till you get done?" And with that he went away. But the frogs still cried, "Ache, ache, ache, ache," after him till he went home quite angry. Imagine losing an argument with frogs. It's a crazy day for this guy. After a while, he bought another cow, which he killed, and he made the calculation that if he sold the meat well, he might gain as much as 2 cows were worth, and have the skin into the bargain, and have the skin into the bargain. When, therefore, he got to the town with the meat, a great troop of dogs were gathered together in front of the gate, with a large greyhound at the head of them, which jumped at the meat, snuffed at it, and barked, "Wow, wow, wow!" As there was no stopping him, the peasant said to him, "Yes, yes, I know quite well that that thou art saying wow, 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 because thou wantest some of the meat, but I should fare badly if I were to give it to thee. The dog, however, answered nothing but wow, wow. Wilt thou promise not to devour it all then? And wilt thou go bail for thy companions? Wow, 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 said the dog. Well, if thou insistest on it, I will leave it for thee. I know thee well, and know who is thy master. But this I tell thee, I must have my money in 3 days, or else it will go ill with thee. Thou must bring it out to me. Thereupon he unloaded the meat and turned back again. The dogs fell upon it and loudly barked, wow, wow. I feel like this guy's just stupid. The countryman, who heard them from afar, said to himself, hark now, hark. Now they all want some, but the big one is responsible to me for it. I read the next sentence and I can't with this. Anyway. When 3 days had passed, the countryman thought, tonight my money will be in my pocket, and was quite delighted. But no one would come and pay it. There's no trusting anyone now, said he, and at last he lost patience and went into the town to the butcher and demanded his money. The butcher thought it was a joke, but the peasant said, jesting apart, I will have my money. Did not the great dog bring you the whole of the slaughtered cow 3 days ago? Then the butcher grew angry, snatched a broomstick, and drove him out. Wait a while, said the peasant. There is still some justice in this world. Oh, God. And went to the royal palace and begged for an audience. He was led before the king, who sat there with his daughter, and asked him what injury he had suffered. Alas, said he, the frogs and the dogs have taken from me what is mine, and the butcher has paid me for it with the stick. And he related at full length all that had happened. Thereupon the king's daughter began to laugh heartily, and the king said to him, I cannot give you justice in this, but you shall have my daughter to wife for it. In her whole life she has never yet laughed as she has just done at thee, and I have promised her to him who could make her laugh. Thou mayst thank goodness for thy good fortune. Oh, answered the peasant, I will not have her. I have a wife already, and she is one too many for me. When I go home, it is just as bad as if I had a wife standing in every corner. Then the king grew angry and said, Thou art a boor. Ah, Lord King, replied the peasant. What can you expect from an ox but beef? Stop, answered the king. Thou shalt have another reward. Be off now, but come back in 3 days. And then thou shalt have 500 counted out in full. I am a little bit worried. When the peasant went out by the gate, the sentry said, Thou hast made the king's daughter laugh, so thou wilt certainly receive something good. Yes, that is what I think, answered the peasant. 500 are to be counted out to me. Hark thee, said the soldier, give me some of it. What canst thou do with all that money? As it is thou, said the peasant, thou shalt have 200. Present thyself in 3 days. In 3 days' time before the king, and let it be paid to thee. A man who was standing by and had heard the conversation ran after the peasant, held him by the coat, and said, Oh wonder, what a luck child thou art! I will change it for thee. I will change it for thee into small coins. What dost thou want in the great thalers? Man, said the countryman, 300 canst thou still give. Give it to me at once in coin. In 3 days from this thou wilt be paid for it by the king. The man was delighted with the profit. How is it profit? What? And brought the sum in bad groschen, 3 of which were worth 2 good ones. Oh, he's giving him bad money. This guy's just getting scammed. He got scammed by frogs, dogs, a soldier, and now this random dude? Anyway, 3 of which were worth 2 good ones. After 3 days had passed, according to the king's command, the peasant went before the king. Pull his coat off, said the latter, and he shalt have his 500. Ah, said the peasant, they no longer belong to me. I presented 200 of them to the sentinel, and 300 to the man I met on the street, has changed for me. So by right, nothing at all belongs to me. In the meantime, the soldier and the man entered and claimed what they had gained from the peasant, and they received the blows strictly counted out. The soldier bore it patiently and knew already how it tasted. But the man was sorrowfully, alas, alas. No, but the man said sorrowfully, alas, alas, are these the heavy thalers? The king could not help laughing at the peasant, and as all his anger was gone, he said, thou hast already lost thy reward before it fell to thy lot. I will give thee something in the place of it. Go into my treasure chamber and get some money for thyself, as much as thou wilt. It's a strange story. The peasant did not need to be told twice, and stuffed into his big pockets whatsoever would go in. Afterwards he went to an inn and counted out his money. The man had crept after him, and heard how he muttered to himself, the rogue of a king has cheated me after all. Why could he not have given me the money himself, and then I should have known what I had? How can I tell now if what I have had the luck to put in my pockets is right or not? Good heavens, said the man to himself, that man is speaking disrespectfully of our lord the king. I will run and inform, and then I shall get a reward, and he will be punished as well. When the king heard of the peasant's words, he fell into a passion, and commanded the man to go and bring the offender to him. The man ran to the peasant. You are to go at once to the lord king, in the very clothes you have on. I know what's right better than that, answered the peasant. I shall have a new coat made first. Dost thou think that a man with so much money in his pocket is to go there in his ragged old coat? The man, as he saw that the peasant would not stir without another coat, and as he feared that if the king's anger cooled, he himself would lose his reward, and the peasant his punishment, said, I will out of pure friendship lend thee a coat for a short time. What will people do for love? What will people not do for love? The peasant was contented with this, put the man's coat on, and went off with him. The king reproached the countryman because of the evil speaking of which the man had informed him. Ah, said the peasant, what a man says is always false. No true word ever comes out of his mouth. That rascal there is capable of maintaining that I have his coat on. What is that? Shrieked the man. Is the coat not mine? Have I not lent it to thee out of pure friendship in order that thou might appear before the Lord King? When the king heard that, he said, the man has assuredly deceived one or the other of us, either myself or the peasant. And again he ordered something to be counted out to him in hard thalers. The peasant, however, went home in the good coat, and with the good money in his pocket and said to himself, "This time I have hit it." What a fucking horrible, what a horrible lesson. Just, my goodness. What the hell? One second, I need to get chapstick. One moment. Alright, I'm back. Now I just need a moment to apply the chapstick. Ah, delightful. Sorry, Lily's lips were feeling a little bit sore. Mm, Alrighty. The next one is The Wonderful Musician. Again, I've never read this one. Big surprise. Mm. Okay. There once. No. Messed it up already. There was once a wonderful musician who went quite alone through a forest and thought of all manner of things. And when nothing was left for him to think about, he said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I will fetch hither a good companion for myself." Then he took his fiddle from his back and played so that it echoed through the trees. It was not long before a wolf came trotting through the thicket towards him. Ah, here's a wolf coming. I have no desire for him. That's rude. Wolves are pretty, said the musician. The wolf came near and said to him, "Ah, dear musician, how beautifully thou dost play. I should like to learn that too." "It is soon learnt," the musician replied. "Thou hast only to do all that I bid thee." Oh boy, he's gonna try to scam a wolf. "O musician," said the wolf, "I will obey thee as a scholar obeys his master." The musician bade him follow, and when they had gone part of the way together, they came to an old oak tree, which was hollow inside and cleft in the middle. "Look," said the musician, "if thou wilt learn to fiddle, put thy forepaws into this crevice." The wolf obeyed, but the musician quickly picked up a stone, and with one blow wedged his two paws so fast that he was forced to stay there like a prisoner. "Stay here until I come back again," said the musician, and went his way. After a while he again said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I will fetch hither another companion," and took his fiddle again. And took his fiddle and again played in the forest. It was not long before a fox came creeping through the trees towards him. Ah, there's a fox coming, said the musician. I have no desire for him. The fox came up to him and said, "Oh, dear musician, how beautifully thou dost play. I should like to learn that too." "That is soon learnt," said the musician. "Thou hast only do everything I bid thee." "Oh, musician," said the fox, "I will obey that thy as a scholar obeys his master." Oh boy. "Follow me," said the musician, and when they had walked a part of the way, they came to a footpath with high bushes on both sides of it. There the musician stood still, and from one side bent a young hazel bush down to the ground, and put his foot on top of it. Then he bent down a young tree from the other side as well, and said, "Now, little fox, if thou wilt learn something, give me thy left front paw, only the left front one, I guess." And the fox obeyed, and the musician fastened his paw to the left bough. "Little fox," said the musician, "now reach me thy right paw," and he tied it to the right bough. When he had examined whether they were firm enough, he let go, and the bushes sprang up again, and jerked up the little fox, so that it hung struggling in the air. "Wait here till I come back again." And the musician went on his way. Again he said to himself, "Time is beginning to pass heavily with me here in the forest. I will fetch hither another companion." So he took his fiddle, and the sound echoed through the forest. Then a little hare came springing towards him. "Why, a hare is coming," said the musician. "I do not want him." "Ah, dear musician," said the hare, "how beautifully thou dost fiddle. I too should like to learn that." "That is soon learnt," said the musician. "Thou hast only to do everything I bid thee." "Oh, musician," replied the little hare, "I will obey thee as a scholar obeys his master." They went a part of the way together until they came to an open space in the forest, where stood an aspen tree. The musician tied a long string round the little hare's neck, and the other end of which he fastened to the tree. "Now briskly, little hare, run 20 times round the tree," cried the musician, and the little hare obeyed, and when it had run round 20 times, it had twisted the string 20 times round the trunk of the tree, and the little hare was caught, and let it pull and tug as it liked. It only made the string cut into its tender neck. Jesus, thank you for the hydrate, Tay, and the head pats. Son of a bitch. Said the musician and went onwards. The wolf, in the meantime, had pushed and pulled and bitten at the stone, and had worked so long that he had set his feet at liberty, and had drawn them once. Oh, another hydrate. Thank you for the other hydrate. I'm gonna run out of tea. Yummy. It's yummy tea. I like the tea. I mean, what? Ba-ba-ba. He had set his feet at liberty, and had drawn them once more out of the cleft. Full of anger and rage, he hurried after the musician, and wanted to tear him to pieces. When the fox saw him running, he began to lament, and cried with all his might, "Brother, brother wolf, come to my help, the musician has betrayed me." The wolf drew down the little tree, bit the cord in two, and freed the fox, who went with him to take revenge on the musician. They found the tied-up hare, whom likewise they rescued. and then they all sought the enemy together. The musician had once more played his fiddle as he went on his way, and this time he had been more fortunate. Sound reached the ears of a poor woodcutter, who instantly, whether he would or no, gave up his work and came with his hatchet under his arm to listen to the music. Oh my god, what is that? What is that? Did you modify that emote? That is hilarious. What? I love it. Oh my god, that's hilarious. At last comes the right companion, said the musician, for I was seeking a human being and no wild beast. And he began and played so beautifully and delightfully that the poor man stood there as if bewitched, and his heart leapt with gladness. And as he thus stood, the wolf, the fox, and the hare came up, and he saw well that they had some evil design. So he raised his glittering axe and placed himself before the musician, as if to say, "Whoso wishes to touch him, let him beware, for he will have to do with me." Then the beasts were terrified and ran back into the forest. The musician, however, played once more to the man out of gratitude, and then went onwards. Bro, what? What? That's fucking rude. Okay, one moment. I'm gonna go check on something really fast. I'll be right back. Thank you so much for being so patient with me. Okay, I'm back. Just had to check on something real fast. God, some of these have just. Sorry. All of these have the worst morals. Just. Just the worst. Just the absolute fucking worst. How? How dare. Oh my goodness. Okay. The next one is the 12 Brothers. I wonder what that's about. Pumping. The 12 Brothers. There were once upon a time a king and a queen who lived happily together and had 12 children, but they were all boys. Oh no. A medieval couple having nothing but boys in a royal family? Whatever shall they do? Being sarcastic. Then said the king to his wife, "If the 13th child, which thou art about to bring into the world, is a girl, 12 boys shall die, in order that her possessions may be great, and that the kingdom may fall to her alone." What? Fucking what? What kind of shit? What kind of crazy fucking statement is that? It's like, well, if you have a girl, then we have to slowly kill all of our other children, clearly. He said it so, like, so matter of factly. I just can't, man. Anyway, he caused likewise several. No, he caused likewise 12 coffins to be made, which were already filled with shavings, and in each lay a little pillow for the dead. He had them taken into a locked up room, and then he gave the queen the key of it, and bade her not to speak of this to anyone. Okay? The mother, however, now sat and lamented all day long, until the youngest son, who was always with her, and whom she had named Benjamin, said to her, "Dear mother, why art thou so sad?" "Dearest child," she answered, "I may not tell thee." But he let her have no rest until she went and unlocked the room and showed him the 12 coffins ready, filled with shavings. Um, then she said, "My dearest Benjamin, thy father has had these coffins made for thee and thy 11 brothers. For if I bring a little girl into the world, you are all to be killed and buried in them." And as she wept while she was saying this, the sun comforted her, and said, "Weep not, dear mother, we will save ourselves, and go hence." But she said, "Go forth into the forest with thy 11 brothers, and let one sit constantly on the highest tree which can be found, and keep watch, looking towards the tower here in the castle. If I give birth to a little son, I will put up a white flag, and then you may venture to come back. But if I bear a daughter, I will hoist a red flag, and then fly hence as quickly as you are able, as may the good as may the good Sky Daddy protect you. And every night I will rise up and pray for you. In winter, that you may be able to warm yourself at a fire, and in summer, that you may not faint away in the heat." After she had blessed her sons, therefore, they went forth into the forest. They each kept watch in turn, and sat on the highest oak and looked towards the tower. When 11 days had passed, and the turn came to Benjamin, he saw that a flag was being raised. It was, however, not the white but the blood-red flag, which announced that they were all to die. When the brothers heard that, they were very angry, and said, "Are we all to suffer death for the sake of a girl? We swear that we will avenge ourselves. Wheresoever we find a girl, her red blood shall flow." Okay, that's not the way to go about this, boys. You don't gotta be the merry band of girl murderers because your dad's a fucking psychopath. That sounds like you're just doing the thing that he wanted to do. Anyway, whatever. Thereupon they went deeper into the forest, and in the midst of it, where it was the darkest, they found a little bewitched hut, which was standing empty. Then said they, "Here we will dwell, and thou, Benjamin, who art the youngest and weakest, thou shalt stay at home and keep house. We others will go out and get food." Then they went into the forest and shot hares, wild deer, birds, and pigeons, and whatsoever there was to eat. This they took to Benjamin, who had to dress it for them in order that they might appease their hunger. They lived there together 10 years in the little hut, and the time did not appear long to them. The little daughter, which their mother, the queen, had given birth to, was now grown up. She was good of heart and fair of face, and had a golden star on her forehead. Once, when it was the great washing, she saw 12 men's shirts among the things, and asked her mother, "To whom do these 12 shirts belong? For they are far too small for father." Then the queen answered with a heavy heart, "Dear child, these belong to thy 12 brothers." said the maiden. Where are my 12 brothers? I have never yet heard of them, she replied. Ah, goodness knows where they are. They are wandering about the world. Then she took the maiden and opened the chamber for her, and showed her the 12 coffins, with the shavings and pillows for the head. These coffins, said she, were destined for thy brothers, but they went away secretly before thou wert born. And she related to her how everything had happened. Then said the maiden, Dear mother, weep not. I will go and seek my brothers. Oh no, oh no, oh no, 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 no. No, they turned into girl murderers. You can't do that. They turned into people that murder ladies. Okay, well, I wish her good luck. So she took the 12 shirts and went forth, and straight into the great forest. She walked the whole day, and in the evening she came to the bewitched hut. Those girls should have picked the bear. Yeah, exactly. Then she entered it and found a young boy who asked, From whence comest thou, and whither art thou bound? And was astonished that she was so beautiful, and wore royal garments, and had a star on her forehead. And she answered, I am a king's daughter. I am seeking my 12 brothers, and I will walk as far as the sky is blue until I find them. She likewise showed him the 12 shirts which belonged to them. Then Benjamin saw that she was his sister, and said, I am Benjamin, thy youngest brother. And she began to weep for joy, and Benjamin wept also, and they kissed and embraced each other with the greatest love. But after this he said, Dear sister, there is still one difficulty. We have agreed that every maiden whom we meet shall die, because we have been obliged to leave our kingdom on account of a girl. Then said she, I will willingly die, if by so doing I can save my 12 brothers. Ah, no, answered he, thou shalt not die. Seat thyself beneath this tub until our 11 brothers come, and then I will soon come to an agreement with them. She did so, and when it was night, the others came from hunting, and their dinner was ready. And as they were sitting at table and eating, they asked, What news is there? Said Benjamin. Don't you know anything? No, they answered. He continued, You have been in the forest, and I have stayed at home, and yet I know more than you do. Tell us then, they cried. He answered, But promise me that the first maiden who meets us shall not be killed. Yes, they all cried. She shall have mercy, only do tell us. Then said he, Our sister is here, and he lifted up the tub, and the king's daughter came forth in her royal garments, with the golden star on her forehead, and she was beautiful, delicate, and fair. Then they were all rejoiced and fell on her neck and kissed and loved her with all their hearts. And then their dad bust in with a fucking Uzi and started killing all of them because he made a fucking promise. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I made a joke. Okay. That would be funny though. It's like, I fucking knew it. I fucking told you. Anyway, now she stayed at home with Benjamin and helped him with the work. The 11 went into the forest and caught game, and deer, and birds, and wood pigeons, that they might have food, and the little sister and Benjamin took care to make it ready for them. She sought for the wood for cooking and herbs for vegetables, and put the pans on the fire so that the dinner was always ready when the 11 came. She likewise kept order in the little house, and put beautifully white clean coverings on the little beds. And the brothers were always contented and lived in great harmony with her. Once upon a time, the two at home had prepared a beautiful entertainment, and when they were all together, they sat down and ate and drank, and were full of gladness. There was, however, a little garden belonging to the bewitched house, wherein stood 12 lily flowers, oh no, which are likewise called students? What? Anyway, she wished to give her brothers pleasure, and plucked the 12 flowers, and thought she would present each brother with one while at dinner. They're poisonous. Poison, poison, poison. But at the self same moment that she plucked the flowers, the 12 brothers were changed into 12 ravens, and flew away over the forest, and the house and garden vanished likewise. Oh, they turned into ravens. I guess they didn't technically die. Now the poor maiden was alone in the forest, and when she looked around, an old woman was standing near her, who said, "My child, what hast thou done? Why didst thou not leave the 12 white flowers growing? They were thy brothers, who are now forevermore changed into ravens." The maiden said, weeping, "Is there no way of delivering them?" "No," said the woman. "There is but one in the whole world, and that is so hard that thou wilt not deliver them by it. For thou must be dumb for 7 years, and mayst not speak or laugh. And if thou speakest one single word, and only an hour of the 7 years is wanting, all is in vain, and thy brothers will be killed by the one word." Oh boy. Then said the maiden in her heart, "I know with certainty that I shall set my brothers free," and went and sought a high tree, and seated herself in it, and span, and neither spoke nor laughed. Now it so happened that a king was hunting in the forest, who had a great greyhound, which ran to the tree on which the maiden was sitting, and sprang about it, whining and barking at her. Then the king came by and saw the beautiful king's daughter, with the golden star on her brow, and was so charmed with her beauty that he called to ask her if she would be his wife. She made no answer, but nodded a little with her head. "Why? But for why? But for why?" Just shake your head. Just be like, "Mm, mm, mm, mm," and then go live with your family for a bit. Like that's all you need. You just need to stay home. Anyway, so he climbed up the tree himself, carried her down, placed her on his horse, and bore her home. Then the wedding was solemnized with great magnificence and rejoicing. But the bride neither spoke nor smiled. When they had lived happily together for a few years, the king's mother, who was a wicked woman, began to slander the young queen, and said to the king, "This is a common beggar girl whom thou hast brought back with thee. Who knows what impious tricks she practices secretly? Even if she be dumb and not able to speak, she might laugh for once. But those who do not laugh have bad consciences." At first the king would not believe it, but the old woman urged this so long, and accused her of so many evil things, that at last the king let himself be persuaded and sentenced her to death. Great. And now a great fire was lighted in the courtyard, in which she was to be burnt, and the king stood above the window and looked on with tearful eyes. because he still loved her so much. And when she was bound fast to the stake, and the fire was licking at her clothes with its red tongue, the last instant of the 7 years expired. Then a whirring sound was heard in the air, and 12 ravens came flying towards the place, and sank downwards. And when they touched the earth, they were her 12 brothers, whom she had saved. Then they tore the fire asunder, extinguished the flames, set their dear sister free, and kissed and embraced her. And now, as she dared to open her mouth and speak, she told the king why she had been dumb, and had never laughed. The king rejoiced when he heard that she was innocent, and they all lived in great unity until their death. The wicked stepmother was taken before the judge and put into a barrel filled with boiling oil and venomous snakes, and died an evil death. It's such a strange. Why did it just like literally the last sentence is just, yeah, and the stepmother got killed brutally, it's fine. And I'm like, okay. 1 second. I'm just like, okay. I mean, it's fine, I guess. Oh, the pack of ragamuffins. This seems fun, but also possibly offensive. Sorry. I'm too cozy. It's making me get all like comfy, and I keep just getting really just like, you know. I know that there's a way for me to like record a little animation loop if my tracking gets lost. I wonder if Sleepy Len would be better than Death Stare. I don't know. What do you guys think? Dead Stare or Sleepy? Well, I go get a coat on because it's a little chilly. All right. Oh, nice and comfy and cozy. Oh boy, I just read the first sentence of the next one. Hmm. I'm gonna switch this word out. Oh. The rooster once said to the hen, "It is now time. It is now the time when our nuts are ripe. So let us go to the hill together, and for once eat our fill before the squirrel takes them away." "Yes," replied the hen. "Come, we will have some pleasure together." Then they went away to the hill, and as it was a bright day, they stayed till evening. Now I do not know whether it was that they had eaten till they were too fat, or whether they had become proud, but they would not go home on foot, and the rooster had to build a little carriage of nutshells. When it was ready, the little hen seated herself in it, and said to the rooster, "Thou canst just harness thyself to it." "I like that," said the rooster. I would rather go home on foot than let myself be harnessed to it. No, that is not our bargain. I do not mind being coachman and sitting on the box, but drag it myself I will not." As they were thus disputing, a duck quacked to them. "You thieving folks, who bade you go to my nut hill? Well, you shall suffer for it," and ran with open beak at the rooster. But the rooster was not idle, and fell boldly on the duck, and at last wounded her so with his spurs that she also begged for mercy, and willingly let herself be harnessed to the carriage as a punishment. The little rooster now seated himself on the box, and was coachman, and thereupon they went off in a gallop, with the rooster crying, "Duck, go as fast as thou canst." When they had driven a part of the way, they met 2 foot passengers, a pin and a needle. They cried, "Stop, stop," and said that it would soon be as dark as pitch, and then they could not go a step further, and that it was so dirty on the road, and asked if they could not get into the carriage for a while. They had been at the tailor's public house by the gate, and had stayed too long over the beer. As they were thin people who did not take up much room, the rooster let them both. There we go. Sorry about that. I still need a new microphone because this one is so delicate. I can't even, barely jostle it at all. But they had to promise him and his little hen not to step on their feet. Late in the evening they came to an inn, and as they did not like to go further by night, and as the duck also was not strong on her feet, and fell from one side to the other, they went in. The host at first made many objections. His house was already full. Besides, he thought they could not be very distinguished persons. But at last, as they made pleasant speeches and told him that he should have the egg which the little hen had laid on the way, and should likewise keep the duck, which laid one every day, he at length said that they might stay the night. And now they had themselves well served and feasted and rioted. Early in the morning, when day was breaking, and everyone was asleep, the rooster awoke the hen, brought the egg, pecked it open, and they ate it together. Okay, weird. But they threw the shell on the hearth. Then they went to the needle, which was still asleep, took it by the head, and stuck it into the cushion of the landlord's chair, and put the pin in his towel. And at the last, without more ado, they flew away over the heath. The duck, who liked to sleep in the open air and had stayed in the yard, heard them going away, made herself merry, and found a stream, down which she swam, which was a much quicker way of traveling than being harnessed to a carriage. The host did not get out of bed for 2 hours after this. He washed himself and wanted to dry himself, when the pin went over his face and made a red streak from one ear to the other. After this he went into the kitchen and wanted to light a pipe, but when he came to the hearth, the eggshell darted into his eyes. "This morning everything attacks my head," said he, and angrily sat down on his grandfather's chair. But he quickly started up again and cried, "Woe is me!" For the needle had pricked him still worse than the pin, and not in the head. Now he was thoroughly angry, and suspected the guests who had come so late the night before, and when he went and looked about for them, they were gone. Then he made a vow to take no more ragamuffins into his house, for they consume much, pay for nothing, and play mischievous tricks into the bargain by way of gratitude. Fucking silly. Like, oh, yep, they are absolutely ragamuffins. How fucking dare you? Absolutely wild. Little brother and little sister, hopefully this isn't weird. I really hope it's not weird because there's a lot of weird shit going on here. Who knows? Who knows? little, little brother and little sister. Little brother took his little sister by the hand and said, "Since our mother died, we have had no happiness. Our stepmother beats us every day, and if we come near her, she kicks us away with her foot. Our meals are the hard crusts of bread that are left over, and the little dog under the table is better off, for she often throws it a nice bit. May heaven pity us. If our mother only knew. Come, we will go forth together into the wide world." Oh no. Oh. They walked the whole day over meadows, fields, and stony places, and when it rained, the little sister said, "Heaven and our hearts are weeping together." In the evening they came to a large forest, and they were so weary with sorrow and hunger, and the long walk, that they lay down in a hollow tree and fell asleep. Classic mistake. Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that in a Grimm's fairy tale. It's not gonna go well for them. The next day, when they awoke, the sun was already high in the sky and shone down hot into the tree. Then the brother said, "Sister, I'm thirsty. If I knew of a little brook, I would go and just take a drink. I think I hear one running." Uh, Better go catch it. I'm kidding. The brother got up and took the little sister by the hand, and they set off to find the brook. But the wicked stepmother was a witch. Okay. And had seen how the two children had gone away, and had crept after them privily, as witches do creep. This is known. Witches, they creep privily, and had bewitched all the brooks in the forest. Uh-oh. Now, when they found a little brook leaping brightly over the stones, the brother was going to drink out of it. But the sister heard how it said as it ran, "Who drinks of me will be a tiger, who drinks of me will be a tiger." Wait, why did that stop her? Like, yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily want to be a tiger or anything, but like, what if you wanted to be a tiger? But like, what if you wanted to be a tiger? Feel like it? Well, I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, then the sister cried, "Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a wild beast and tear me to pieces." You know what? That's fair. But it doesn't say that you won't have your mind. It just says that you'll be a tiger. What if you'll have your same mind and personality? Well, the brother did not drink, although he was so thirsty, but said, "I will wait for the next spring." When they came to the next brook, the sister heard this also say, "Who drinks of me will be a wolf. Who drinks of me will be a wolf." Then the sister cried out, "Pray, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a wolf and devour me." Hiccup. The brother did not drink and said, "I will wait until we come to the next spring. But then I must drink. Say what you like, for my thirst is too great." And when they came to the third brook, the sister heard how it said as it ran, "Who drinks of me will be a roebuck. Who drinks of me will be a roebuck." Roebucks? Roblox? No, it's a this is an animal. It's an animal. The sister said, "Oh, I pray you, dear brother, do not drink, or you will become a roebuck and run away from me." But the brother had knelt down at once by the brook, and had bent down and drunk some of the water. And as soon as the first drops touched his lips, he lay there a young roebuck. And now the sister wept over her poor bewitched brother, and the little roe wept also, and sat sorrowfully near her. But at last the girl said, "Be quiet, dear little roe, I will never, never leave you." Then she untied her golden garter, and put it round the roebuck's neck, and she plucked rushes and wove them into a soft cord. With this she tied the little beast and led it on, and she walked deeper and deeper into the forest. And when they had gone a very long way, they came at last to a little house, and the girl looked in, and as it was empty, she thought, "We can stay here and live." Then she sought for leaves and moss, yea, to make a soft bed for the roe. And every morning she went out and gathered roots and berries and nuts for herself, and brought tender grass for the roe, who ate out of her hand, and was content, and played round about her. In the evening, when the sister was tired, and had said her prayer, she laid her head upon the roebuck's back. That was her pillow, and she slept softly on it. And if only the brother had had his human form, it would have been a delightful life. Rip. For some time they were alone like this in the wilderness, but it happened that the king of the country held a great hunt in the forest. Oh no. Then the blasts of the horns, the barkings of dogs, and the merry shouts of the huntsmen rang through the trees. And the roebuck heard all, and was only too anxious to be there. "Oh," said he to his sister, "let me be off to the hunt. I cannot bear it any longer." And he begged so much that at last she agreed. "But," she said to him, "come back to me in the evening. I must shut my door for fear of the rough huntsman. So knock and say, 'My little sister, let me in.' Oh no, that I may know you. And if you do not say that, I shall not open the door." Then the young roebuck sprang away, so happy was he, and so merry in the open air. The king and the huntsman saw the pretty creature, and started after him, but they could not catch him. And when they thought that they surely had him, away he sprang through the bushes, and could not be seen. When it was dark, he ran to the cottage, knocked, and said, "My little sister, let me in." Then the door was opened for him, and he jumped in, and rested himself the whole night through upon his soft bed. The next day the hunt went on afresh, and when the roebuck again heard the bugle horn and the ho-ho of the huntsman, he had no peace, but said, "Sister, let me out, I must be off." His sister opened the door for him, and said, but you must be here again in the evening and say your password. He knocks and is like, your password? When the king and his huntsmen again saw the young roebuck with the golden collar, they all chased him, but he was too quick and nimble for them. This went on for the whole day, but at last by the evening the huntsman had surrounded him. Oh no. Ba, 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 ba. And one of them wounded him a little on the foot, so that he limped and ran slowly. Then a hunter crept after him to the cottage and heard how he said, "My little sister, let me in," and saw that the door was opened for him and was shut again at once. The huntsman took notice of it all, and went to the king and told him what he had seen and heard. Then the king said, "Tomorrow we will hunt once more." The little sister, however, was dreadfully frightened when she saw that her fawn was hurt. She washed the blood off him, laid herbs on the ground on the wound, and said, "Go to your bed, dear Roe, that you may get well again." But the wound was so slight that the roebuck next morning did not feel it any more, and when he again heard the sport outside, he said, "I cannot bear it, I must be there. They shall not find it so easy to catch me." The sister cried and said, "This time they will kill you, and here I am alone in the forest and forsaken by all the world. I will not let you out." "Then you will have me die of grief," answered the roe. "Rude. When I hear the bugle horns, I feel as if I must jump out of my skin." Then the sister could not do otherwise, but opened the door for him with a heavy heart, and the roebuck, full of health and joy, bounded into the forest. As soon as the sun had set, oh wait, no. When the king saw him, he said to his huntsman, "Now chase him all day long till nightfall, but take care that no one does him any harm." As soon as the sun had set, the king said to the huntsman, "Now come and show me the cottage in the wood." And when he was at the door, he knocked and called out, "Dear little sister, let me in." Then the door opened, and the king walked in, and there stood a maiden more lovely than any he had ever seen. The maiden was frightened when she saw, not her little roe, but a man come in who wore a golden crown upon his head. But the king looked kindly at her, stretched out his hand, and said, "Will you go with me to my palace and be my dear wife?" "Yes, indeed," answered the maiden, "but the little roe must go with me. I cannot leave him." The king said, "It shall stay with you as long as you live, and shall want nothing." Just then he came running in, and the sister again tied him with the cord of rushes, took it in her own hand, and went away with the king from the cottage. The king took the lovely maiden upon his horse and carried her to his palace, where the wedding was held with great pomp. She was now the queen, and they lived for a long time happily together. The roebuck was tended and cherished, and ran about in the palace garden. But the wicked stepmother, oh no, not again, because of whom the children had gone out into the world. Oh yeah, thought all the time that the sister had been torn to pieces by the wild beasts in the wood, and that the brother had been shot for a roebuck by the huntsman. Now when she heard that they were so happy and so well off, envy and hatred rose in her heart and left her no peace, and she thought of nothing but how she could bring them again to misfortune. Her own daughter, who was ugly as night, and had only one eye, grumbled at her and said, "A queen! That ought to have been my luck." "Only be quiet," answered the old woman, and comforted her by saying, "When the time comes, I shall be ready." As time went on, what? Hold up. Why? What do you got? I'm scared. What does Tay got? I'm very, very concerned. I'm worried. Anyway, as time went on, the queen had a pretty little boy, and it happened that the king was out hunting. So the old witch took the form of the chambermaid, went into the room where the queen lay, and said to her, "Come, the bath is ready. It will do you good, and give you—" Oh, hey, thank you so much, Dr. Glaze, for the follow. Welcome in. We're 6 away from 500. I'm so excited. Anyway, and give you fresh strength. Make haste before it gets cold. The daughter also was close by, so they carried the weakly queen into the bathroom and put her into the bath. Then they shut the door and ran away. Oh, thank you, Jobka the Frog, for the follow as well. What happened? What is happening? I'm very concerned. Like 2 people followed me in a very short amount of time. Very worried. Anyway. So they carried the weakly queen into the bathroom and put her into the bath. Yeah, 5 away. Then they shut the door and ran away. But in the bathroom they had made a fire of such deadly heat that the beautiful young queen was soon suffocated. When this was done, the old woman took her daughter, put a nightcap on her head, and laid her in bed in place of the queen. She gave her too the shape and look of the queen, only she could not make good the lost eye. But in order that the king might not see it, she was to lie on the side on which she had no eye. I feel like eventually he's gonna figure it out, because, eventually she has to be up and about. Anyway, in the evening, when he came home and heard that he had a son, he was heartily glad, and was going to the bed of his dear wife to see how she was. But the old woman quickly called out, "For your life, leave the curtains closed. The queen ought not to see the light yet, and must have rest." The king went away and did not find out that a false queen was lying in the bed. But at midnight, when all slept, the nurse, who was sitting in the nursery by the cradle, and who was the only person awake, saw the door open and the true queen walk in. Thank you so much. I appreciate it a lot. I like the model a lot too. This is my comfy, cozy reading outfit. Thank you. Where was I? But at midnight, when all slept, the nurse, who was sitting in the nursery by the cradle, and who was the only person awake, saw the door open and the true queen walk in. She took the child out of the cradle, laid it on her arm, and suckled it. She then shook up its pillow, laid the child down again, and covered it with a little quilt. And she did not forget the roebuck, but went into the corner where it lay, and stroked its back. Then she went quite silently out of the door again. The morning the nurse asked the guards No, the next morning the nurse asked the guards whether anyone had come into the palace during the night. But they answered, "No, we have seen no one. We didn't see anyone. We ain't no snitch." She came thus many nights, and never spoke a word. The nurse always saw her, but she did not dare tell anyone about it. When some time had passed in this manner, the queen began to speak in the night, and said, "How fares my child? How fares my roe? Twice shall I come, then never more." The nurse did not answer, but when the queen had gone again, went to the king and told him all, told him everything. The king said, "Ah, heavens! What is this? Tomorrow night I will watch by the child." In the evening he went into the nursery, and at midnight the queen again appeared and said, "How fares my child? How fares my roe? Once will I come, then never more." And she nursed the child, and as she wont to do before, she disappeared. The king dared not speak to her, but on the next night he watched again. Then she said, "How fares my child? How fares my roe? This time I come, then never more." Then the king could not restrain himself. He sprang towards her and said, "You can be none other than my dear wife." She answered, "Yes, I am your dear wife." And at the same moment she received life again, and by goodness's grace became fresh, rosy, and full of health. Then she told the king the evil deed which the wicked witch and her daughter had been guilty of towards her. The king ordered both to be led before the judge, and judgment was delivered against them. The daughter was taken into the forest, where she was torn to pieces by wild beasts. But the witch was cast into the fire and miserably burnt. And as soon as she was burnt, the roebuck changed his shape and received his human form again. So the sister and brother lived happily together in all their lives. So silly. This is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely redonkulous. A screenshot? What kind of screenshot? I mean, I'll try to remind you, I suppose. Okay, we have a little under an hour left, and it's ad time, so just a moment. Just a moment. And then we're gonna read Rapunzel. We're gonna read Rapunzel. Right now, we're actually reading the Grimm's Fairy Tales. Mm. Alrighty, and we're back from the ad break. Now we're gonna read Rapunzel. Anyone know how this one is different from the Disney? The films? Y'all are gonna very quickly understand. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'm gonna take a sip of my tea before we get to Rapunzel. There were once a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. thank you for the care package. I already took a sip, so I don't have to do that. So I'll just stretch and do fix my posture. Mm. Mm. All right. From the top, I already hydrated. I already hydrated. Beep beep. My microphone messed up and broke. I already drank once, and then I drank again for Lysander issues. So I don't owe you shit. Okay, so we're going to start from the top. I hope that I made it so that is not on stream. I'm pretty sure you couldn't hear it. Luckily, because this is a reading stream. Also, I am an entity of the void. And I take this form because Lily likes it. Lily thinks it's pretty, and so I take the form of an elf. Yeah. I I am going to be writing up my lore basically very soon. As soon as I remember to do it. So again, from the top, we are doing Rapunzel. There once was a man and a woman who had long in vain wished for a child. At length the woman hoped that fate was about to grant her desire. These people had a little window at the back of their house from which a splendid garden could be seen, which was full of the most beautiful flowers and herbs. It was, however, surrounded by a high wall, and no one dared to go into it, because it belonged to an enchantress, who had great power, and was dreaded by all in the world. One day, the woman was standing by this window and looking down into the garden, when she saw a bed which was planted with the most beautiful rampion. Rapunzel, it's a type of flower. And it looked so fresh and green that she longed for it and had the greatest desire to eat some. This desire increased every day, and as she knew that she could not get any of it, she quite pined away and looked pale and miserable. Then her husband was alarmed and asked, "What aileth thee, dear wife?" "Ah," she replied, "if I can't get some of the rampion, which is in the garden behind our house, to eat, I shall die." Dramatic, a little bit, okay. The man who loved her thought, sooner than let thy wife die, bring her some of the rampion thyself, let it cost thee what it will. In the twilight of the evening, he clambered down over the wall into the garden of the enchantress, hastily clutched a handful of rampion, and took it to his wife. She at once made herself a salad of it, and ate it with much relish. She, however, liked it so much, so very much, that the next day she longed for it 3 times as much as before. If he was to have any rest, her husband must once more descend into the garden in the gloom of the evening. Therefore he let himself down again. But when he had clambered down the wall, He was terribly afraid, for he saw the enchantress standing before him. "How canst thou dare," said she with angry look, "to descend into my garden and steal my rampion like a thief? Thou shalt suffer for it." "Ah," answered he, "let mercy take the place of justice. I only made up my mind to do it out of necessity. My wife saw your rampion from the window and felt such a longing for it that she would have died if she had not got some to eat." Then the enchantress allowed her anger to be softened, and said to him, "If the case be as thou sayest, I will allow thee to take away with thee as much rampion as thou wilt. Only I make one condition. Thou must give me the child which thy wife will bring into the world. It shall be well treated, and I will care for it like a mother." The man, in his terror, consented to everything, and when the woman was brought to bed, the enchantress appeared at once, gave the child the name of Rapunzel, and took it away with her. "Oh, well, I would feel happy to hear about your vampire sometime. We have a Discord channel where we could have a whole chat about it. So, feel free to join the Discord at your leisure." Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower. Yeah, there you go. uh, ba, ba, ba. Rapunzel grew into the most beautiful child beneath the sun. When she was 12 years old, the enchantress shut her into a tower, which lay in a forest, and had neither stairs nor door, but quite at the top was a little window. When the enchantress wanted to go in, she placed herself beneath it and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair to me." Rapunzel had magnificent long hair, fine as spun gold, and when she heard the voice of the enchantress, she unfastened her braided tresses, wound them round one of the hooks of the window above, and then the hair fell 20 ells down, and the enchantress climbed up by it. After a year or two, it came to pass that the king's son rode through the forest and went by the tower. Wait, is that her brother? No, it was a man and woman. It wasn't the king. Anyway, thank goodness. Then he heard a song which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel, who in her this was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the door of the tower. Ba, ba, ba. Then he heard a song which was so charming he stood still and listened. It was Rapunzel. Went by the tower, heard a song which was so charming that he stood still and listened. This was Rapunzel, who in her solitude passed her time in letting her sweet voice resound. The king's son wanted to climb up to her and looked for the front door of the tower, but none was to be found. He rode home, but the singing was had so deeply touched his heart that every day he went out into the forest and listened to it. Once, when he was thus standing behind a tree, he saw that an enchantress came there, and he heard how she cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair." Then Rapunzel let down the braids of her hair, and the enchantress climbed up to her. If That is the ladder by which one mounts. I will for once try my fortune, said he, and the next day, when it began to grow dark, he went to the tower and cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair. So dramatic. Immediately the hair fell down, and the king's son began to talk to her quite like a friend, and told her that his heart had been so stirred that it had let him have no rest, and he had been forced to see her. Then Rapunzel lost her fear, and when he asked her if she would take him for her husband, sorry about that. Let's see, where were we? And she saw that he was young and handsome. She thought, he will love me more than old Dame Gothel does. Then she said yes, and laid her hands in his. She said, I will willingly go away with thee, but I do not know how to get down. Bring with thee a skein of silk every time that thou comest, and I will weave a ladder with it. And when that is ready, I will descend, and thou wilt take me on thy horse. They agreed that until that time he should come to her every evening. The old woman came by day. The enchantress remarked nothing from this. Not once Rapunzel, not until once Rapunzel said to her, Tell me, Dame Gothel, how it happens that you are so much heavier for me to draw up than the young king's son. He is with me in a moment. Oh God, what a fucking dumb bitch. Holy shit, Rapunzel. You literally fucking tattled on yourself. You're so stupid. What the fuck? I don't even feel bad for her at this point. What? This fucking what? Anywho. Ah, thou wicked child, cried the enchantress. What do I hear thee say? I thought I had separated thee from all the world, and yet thou hast deceived me. In her anger, she clutched Rapunzel's beautiful tresses, wrapped them twice around her left hand, seized a pair of scissors with the right, and snip snap, they were cut off, and the lovely braids lay on the ground. And she was so pitiless that she took poor Rapunzel into a desert, where she had to live in great grief and misery. On the same day, however, that she cast out Rapunzel, the enchantress in the evening fastened the braids of hair which she had cut off to the hook of the window. And when the king's son came and cried, Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down thy hair, she let the hair down. The king's son ascended, but he did not find his dearest Rapunzel above, but the enchantress, who gazed at him with wicked and venomous looks. Aha! She cried mockingly. Thou wouldst fetch thy dearest, but the beautiful bird sits no longer singing in the nest. The cat has got it, and will scratch out thy eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to thee. Thou wilt never see her more. The king's son was beside himself with pain, and in his despair he leapt down from the tower. He escaped with his life, but the thorns into which he fell pierced his eyes. Then he wandered quite blind about the forest, ate nothing but roots and berries, and did nothing but lament and weep over the loss of his dearest wife. Thus he roamed about in misery for some years, and at length came to the desert where Rapunzel, with the twins to which she had given birth, a boy and a girl, lived in wretchedness. He heard a voice, and it seemed so familiar to him that he went towards it. And when he approached, Rapunzel knew him and fell on his neck and wept. Two of her tears wetted his eyes, and they grew clear again, and he could see with them as before. He led her to his kingdom, where he was joyfully received, and they lived for a long time afterwards, happily and contented. What a fucking twist. All right. Oh, this is one that I actually recognize, The Three Little Men in the Wood. Yeah. There we go. Actually, I unfortunately have to end stream a bit early today. I mean, usually my reading streams are like 3 hours long anyway, because I want to let my voice rest and I want it to be a very relaxed thing. But we got quite a few stories in today, and I hope you all had a lot of fun, and I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all had a good day overall. Um, but I will see you again on Thursday, back with all my silliness and, chaos. I'll see you then. I hope you have a lovely day. Bye bye. Bye.